I recently acquired this HP Pavilion 6617. Today, we're going to restore it and see if we can make it look brand new. Let's get started. Well, the first order of business is to take the computer apart, so let's go ahead and take the lid off now. As you can see, it slides off pretty easy. Looking inside the computer, we can see that it's very cramped, so it's going to be really hard to work on. But the end result will make it all worth it. Next up, I'm going to go ahead and disconnect all the internals of the machine. I started by taking out the floppy drive, then all of the ribbon cables, and also the power supply's cables. And then I slid out the power supply. Next up, I'm going to go ahead and remove the tray which holds the motherboard. There's just 2 screws which need to be undone, and then we can go ahead and pull it out. I must admit, this is a really snug fit, but that goes to show what cheap OEMs were like back in the day. Next up, I'm going to go ahead and remove the CD-ROM so we can get the case down to just its bare metal, no electrical components. It slid out pretty easy after removing the 4 screws holding it in. And here it is. Boom, it's out. The last component left is the hard drive, so let's go ahead and unscrew that now. As you can see, it just slides out really easy. I'm going to be giving this machine a real good clean, so I'm going to go ahead and take the front panel off the case, which I've already done here. Then, I'm also going to pull out the power switch, which again, I've already done. I'm not just going to be getting some cleaner onto this case, I'm going to be hosing it down, making sure we get all the grime off it, because this computer is really dirty, and it kinda stinks too. Now I'm going to go ahead and hose down the front cover of the computer. It has a bunch of dust within it, so I feel as though hosing it is just the best method to kind of clean it up. And plus, I've used this method 100 times and it always works well, and it's really simple. And it just blasts all the dust away when you put the hose on the right setting, so it's kind of perfect. Next up, I'm going to go ahead and repeat this process with the main chassis of the computer. This one is really dusty, so hosing it down made it look brand new. While that's drying off, I'm going to go ahead and turn my attention to the CPU. As we can see here, it's a Celeron 566. I'm going to go ahead and replace the thermal paste on this, since it's dried up and won't work very well. I also want to prolong the lifespan of this CPU, so adding fresh thermal paste will just further that. I'm just using some Q-tips and isopropyl alcohol to remove the bulk of the thermal paste from the CPU die. I'm not too worried about the rest of the CPU, since the die is the only part that will make contact with the heatsink. Speaking of the heatsink, let's go ahead and give that a clean too. I'm just using a blunt flat-tip screwdriver to remove the bulk of the thermal compound from the CPU cooler's block. This is a very debatable way of doing it, but it actually worked alright, and you just don't do it with anything that's sharp and you should be good. If you do really want to do this properly, you should use a plastic blade like the one shown here. This will work exceptionally well and won't damage the metal, since plastic isn't as hard as metal. But yeah, this method ended up working out alright, as you can see here. Now I'm going to go ahead and remove the CPU fan from the cooler itself. This way, I can clean out the block. As you can see here, it came off with just a few screws, and we now have access to this filthy CPU cooler. Now I'm going to go ahead and rinse out the CPU block underneath the tap. This will remove all of the dirt and make it look brand new. Now that that's out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and reassemble the cooler. Now it's time to add some fresh thermal paste to the CPU's die. We only need a little bit here, since it hasn't got a big die at all. I used way too much there. Now I'm going to go ahead and clip on the cooler. And there we go. A lot of people generally don't bother with this, but I'm going to go ahead and neatly route the fan cable, since it'll make the system look nice. As a matter of fact, you won't actually even be able to see the CPU once the system's back together, since the power supply covers it. But it's a nice touch to know that it's there. Nice. I'm going to go ahead and use a paintbrush to remove all the dust and grime from this motherboard. It's not that dirty, but this will make it look brand new. I could also get some compressed air onto it, but that won't give off as nearly as good of a result, so I'll just stick to the brush. Next up, I'm going to go ahead and brush off the floppy drive, as well as the hard drive, and this made them look brand new. Now I'm going to go ahead and clean the CD-ROM drive simply with some isopropyl alcohol and some paper towel. It turned out really nice in the end and looks almost brand new. It's amazing what isopropyl alcohol can do because it's such a simple cleaning utensil, yet it can make stuff look brand new. I somehow lost the footage of this, but I also gave the outer case a good clean, so it looks brand new too. I've gone ahead and let the computer chassis completely dry off, as well as the front cover. Now I'm going to go ahead and reassemble the computer, starting with the motherboard. This was a pain to get back in, but in the end I managed. Now I'm going to go ahead and attach the two screws which were previously missing to hold the motherboard in correctly. This will allow me to slide the cover of the computer on much easier. It was a bit hard to get them in, so I had to turn the computer upright, but I can assure you the screws went in correctly. Now I'm going to go ahead and put on the front cover of the computer again. It looks really nice after a clean, so hopefully it stays clean. I'm sure it will. Now I'm going to go ahead and reinstall the CD-ROM drive, as well as the little covers that go below it. This wasn't too hard, I simply just had to clip them in with a bit of force. It's kind of weird to see all that shielding protection on that drive bay cover. You don't see that at all. That goes to show the weird stuff these OEM companies did. And I'm also just trying to push in that plastic bit a bit because it was sticking out a little. But once I'm satisfied with that, give it the old tap tap. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and install this. It was kind of hard to get it in, but in the end I managed to get it. And now it's time to install the CD-ROM drive. It just slid in real easy. Dead simple. And with a bit of force, yep, there we go. CD-ROM installed. Now it's time to methodically install all of the computer's components. This took a bit of fiddling around since you kind of have to do it in a set order so that everything fits. Like you can't put the power supply in first, for example. You have to put it in close to the end. But the floppy drive comes last, believe it or not. But yeah, I got it all together. Now I'm going to go ahead and slide the cover on. And now the machine's basically put back together. All I need to do now is turn it around and add some screws to the back. I'm going to use thumb screws, since that's what I have on hand. Now I'm going to go ahead and power up the machine, and we'll see if it still works. Looks good so far, and we're getting the BIOS screen, so hopefully it'll work. And yeah, what do you know? It appears to be booting into the Windows 98 image, which I put on this hard drive. That's what I do generally now, just pre-image hard drives and then install the necessary drivers. So as you can see here, it's detecting all the devices. Once all the drivers are installed, I'll show you the end result. Now that I've installed all the drivers, let's go ahead and boot up the computer. Looks good so far. And there we go, we're booting into Windows 98 and it's looking good. What's this? Oh no, it can't display the resolution. Let's just switch over to a CRT then. On the CRT you can see that it seems to be working perfectly, and it's detected my Samsung SyncMaster monitor. I won't bother installing the drivers for that since it's just going to work with the generic one. And also these devices' drivers still need to be installed. And there we go, we're booted into Windows 98 with the overwhelming majority of the drivers installed. And yeah, this is my pre-made image for Windows 98, so it's really simple. It's working perfect, and I gotta say, this computer's really fun to use. Let's go ahead and try out some Doom. And would you look at that, it's working perfect. Well, that's about it for this video. We've restored this little HP back to its original condition, and it's working perfectly. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.